days ago in Louisiana, Damon Thibodeau, who had been on death row in Louisiana for 16 years, walked out of the prison. It's the first time I ever got a call on my cell phone. They were in the car leaving Angola, our prison, and Denny LaBeouf says, "Helen, there's somebody who wants to talk to you. It's Damon Thibodeau, who had just rolled out of the gates." And he was so polite, you know, when the warden said, "Well, Damon, well, bye, Damon. I mean, what do you say?" And he said, "No offense, but I hope I never see you people again." Well, that was so polite. I tell a story in Dead Man Walking of a supervisor on death row. He called me in his office one day, and it was after 5 executions. He said, "Sister, I'm not going to be able to keep doing this anymore. I go and I just sit in my lazy boy chair. I can't sleep, I can't eat. In my gut, I know I'm doing something wrong." And I think he could have done that job for life if he had just stayed on death row, serving on their trays, making sure there was order on the tier. It's when he got switched over to the execution squad, and he had to participate in the killing. And his job, he told me, was not even to be the one to strap people in, but to take a paper sack after they had been killed and go to their cell and get their toothbrush and their personal belongings to give to their family. And of course, it's all legal. You're just doing your job. And on the death certificate, you have to write homicide. Now, Texas writes homicide by way of legal execution. But the key word is homicide, the definition being a human being being killed by other human beings. When you think of the juries, it's ordinary people just like us. And they got to go behind those closed doors, and they know you got to give a unanimous decision. So that means if any one of us doesn't vote for death, the person's going to live. So that means each juror holds that person's life in their hands. My decision is whether or not this human being lives or dies. So the question arose, why do you have the paralyzing drug? Veterinarians Association doesn't use it anymore to euthanize animals because they can't see if the animal's in distress. There was a woman who had eye surgery. She couldn't lift an eyelid. She couldn't lift a finger. She couldn't cry out. It happened. It didn't put her out. She felt everything, and she couldn't cry out. And it's to keep it sanitized so the witnesses do not see as people writhe on the gurney when they're being killed. When I came out of the chamber after the first man I was with who was executed, I vomited. And I remember thinking, clear as a bell, and it's why I'm standing before you tonight. The people are never going to get close to this. All they're going to hear is execution happened, justice was done. But I've been brought close, I'm a witness, I got to tell the story. So now we'll join my colleagues here, and we will have us a fascinating and meaningful discussion.
Well, I grew up in Canada, and so I grew up without a lot of experience about the death penalty. I moved then to Texas, which is, you know, kind of the opposite, yeah, a little different environment.
Nice people, though.
But I think one of the reasons why, you know, why I'm here, other than the fact that Vicki is very, very persuasive, is that this is an opportunity to have a conversation about something that you said we don't really talk about that much. We don't talk about it much in the church.
You look in the Bible, and there's a lot of, if you do this, you get to death. You do this, you get death. And so people were, you know, brought up thinking, well, you know what? It's the right thing. It's in the Bible.
Bible quoting, selective Bible quoting is what we all know how to do. You know, you can find God agreeing with you on anything. I remember it was in North Carolina, and it was a little shock jock. He had me on his show. So he said, "Okay, folks, we'll now open the phone start callers. What do you want to say to the good sister here who doesn't believe Jesus would pull the switch?" And Chuck said, "Well, I got my Bible open right here. Genesis says clear as day. Those that shed blood have their own blood shed, right from God's own mouth." And I said, "Hey, Chuck, open that Bible 2 pages earlier, where we hear from God's own mouth that if you commit adultery, you get the death penalty." Now, Chuck, How come you choosing the murder thing, not the adultery thing? Aren't both from God's mouth? Why are you saying one and not the? He goes, we more civilized than that. Can you imagine what would have been in the scriptures? When Jesus pulls Peter, James, and John aside, he said, look, guys, they're going to kill me. And in order to honor me, my death, I want you to avenge my death. Just suppose, think how the Acts of the Apostles would read. Caiaphas is knocked off, punches Pilate, gets it. I mean, you just start going through killing all people, kill Jesus. That'd be the bloodiest acts of the apostles that you can imagine. Because he's coming out of that vengeance, you know?
Did this just come to you one day?
Just pop in my mind. Police chiefs in this country have been given a list of 10 remedies, and they all put the death penalty dead last because they said the people doing the thinking and the people doing the killing are two separate sets of people. No, and they said that people who do crimes don't even think they're going to get caught. So it's got no deterrent effect. So then we look and say, well, now who's practiced it the most? 80% of all executions are done in the 10 southern states that practice slavery. That's Texas, that's Louisiana, Virginia. Look at it. So you know race is in there. 2/3 of people in our prisons are there for nonviolent crimes. If you have a felony and you get out, you're disenfranchised from your rights. The only equal opportunity employer waiting for you when you get out of prison is a drug dealer. You can't get food stamps, you can't get housing. It's a systematic keeping you under so that you can't get out again. Kristen has appeared. I think she has questions that have come from you, those of you who registered in a bona fide way. We're able to give you questions, and we'll hear those first.
Thank you. What has experience taught you about addressing tough issues in your own churches?
Just don't talk about it. I was at a conference a couple of weeks ago with my wife, who's also a pastor, and we were sitting there in a small group, and we were with people from all over Texas and talking about some different issues, and the people who were in the group didn't know that we were pastors. We were supposed to talk about what was the most frustrating thing about life in your church, and they said, our pastors.
I guess you did say it.
They never talk about things that really matter. They never talk about the important issues. And it's because they're afraid of, you know, somebody who's going to give a big gift to fix the air conditioner and they'll get offended and leave the church or whatever it is. Of course, then they found out that we were pastors, and it was all very embarrassing. But that's the reality. Then. So I took from that lay people really do want to hear about these issues. They want to talk about them. Yeah.
Nobody makes it alone. We have each other in community, like we all have each other tonight, going down this path together to see how we might be called personally to end this thing. Consciousness and conscience are really close to each other. And so when we awaken to something, the minute we begin to act, and we go to one of those, you know, out there to join the Texas Coalition, if we never have before, or Catholics mobilizing against the death penalty, and we never have before, there's a peace that comes over us. Action frees us, because the minute we begin to act, life flows through us.